Minister Narendra Modi is in Bhutan on a 24-hour state visit, seen as a significant one aimed at enhancing the India-Bhutan bilateral partnership and also critical to New Delhi's Neighbourhood First Policy. The Prime Minister was received by Tshering Tobgay, the Prime Minister of Bhutan, and accorded a ceremonial welcome with the Bhutanese people lining the entire 45-kilometer route from Paro International Airport to capital Thimphu, which was decked up with Indian and Bhutanese flags. Prime Minister Modi was conferred Bhutan's highest civilian award, the Order of the Druk Gyalpo by Bhutan's king, in appreciation of his efforts towards strengthening India-Bhutan ties and in particular India's provision of the first round of 500,000 doses of COVID vaccines to the neighbouring country in 2021. While it is rare for the Indian Prime Minister to travel abroad once election dates have been announced, Prime Minister Modi's Bhutan trip, officials say, is to signal the importance India attaches to its ties with Thimphu. Ahead of the visit, the Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement saying, and I quote, "The visit provides an opportunity for both sides to exchange views on bilateral and regional matters of interest and deliberate on ways to expand and intensify our exemplary partnership for the benefit of our peoples." India and Bhutan share a unique and enduring partnership which is rooted in mutual trust, understanding and goodwill. Our shared spiritual heritage and warm people-to-people ties add depth and vibrancy to our exceptional relations. That's what the Ministry of External Affairs said. Today, Prime Minister Modi met with Jigme Khesar Namgyel Wangchuk, the King of Bhutan, and his father, Jigme Singye Wangchuk, the fourth monarch of Bhutan. He also held talks with the Bhutanese Prime Minister. The two leaders held discussions on various aspects of the bilateral relations. Ahead of the meeting, the two Prime Ministers witnessed exchange of several memorandums of understanding on energy, trade, digital connectivity, tourism, space, agriculture and Youth Connect. Prime Minister Modi also inaugurated the Jetsuyen Pema Mother and Child Hospital in Thimphu, a state-of-the-art hospital built with the assistance of the Government of India. Bhutanese Prime Minister Tshering Tobgay was on a 5-day visit to India just last week, his first foreign trip after assuming charge of the top office in January this year. So why are India-Bhutan relations important? This special relationship, as the MEA describes it, is governed by the Indo-Bhutan Friendship Treaty of 1949, which was later updated in 2007. The two countries established formal diplomatic relations in 1968. India has been a reliable friend of the small Himalayan kingdom for decades. New Delhi remains Bhutan's chief development partner. India has been providing financial aid to Bhutan for its socio-economic development since the early 1960s, when the country began its 5-year plans. During the Bhutanese Prime Minister's visit to India last week, Prime Minister Modi promised to step up New Delhi's support for Bhutan's 13th 5-year plan, including considering a request for an economic stimulus program. India and Bhutan have also come together to enhance cooperation in various fields, including hydropower, infrastructure, health, education, digital connectivity and space. India has also committed to supporting Bhutan's ambitious Gyelephu Mindfulness City project. The Bhutanese king had launched the plan last December to develop a major economic hub in Gyelephu on Bhutan's southern border with Assam. Thimphu is keenly seeking India's assistance with rail and roadways connecting to Gyelephu and upgrading the Gyelephu airport to accommodate international flights. India and Bhutan plan to build a 58-kilometer rail link between Gyelephu and Kokrajhar in Assam. The proposed land connection from Gyelephu traversing Assam and West Bengal is expected to give Bhutan access to Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia and Singapore over time. The two neighbours are also seeking to expand their security partnership. Let's not forget the all-important China factor that makes this relationship particularly critical for New Delhi. China's growing presence in Bhutan is a source of concern for India. China and Bhutan have been holding talks on boundary demarcation, and New Delhi is closely watching all these developments. Thimphu's border discussions with China saw considerable progress under the previous Bhutanese government, making India wary. New Delhi is anxious that a deal between Thimphu and Beijing could include swapping Doklam, located close to the tri-junction between India, Bhutan and China, for disputed territories in the north. India considers the Doklam Plateau an undisputed territory of Bhutan, whereas Beijing regards it as an extension of its Chumbi Valley, which lies between Sikkim and Bhutan. The plateau is close to the strategically important Siliguri corridor, which connects the Indian mainland to the northeast. The corridor also links India with Tibet, Nepal, Bhutan and Bangladesh. While Bhutan-China boundary talks focus only on areas to Bhutan's west and north, China's new claims to its east have raised fears that Beijing is using this issue to put pressure on Bhutan to fast-track the boundary talks or risk broadening the dispute areas. Last year, Bhutan and China signed a cooperation agreement for a joint technical team on the delimitation and demarcation of the boundary between the two countries. Any deal between China and Bhutan will have security implications for India. China is also eager to establish formal diplomatic relations with Bhutan. In this backdrop, the back-to-back visits between the prime ministers of both countries indicate strong ties between Bhutan and India. Also, India is Bhutan's top trading partner, and in the past decade, India's non-hydropower trade in goods with Bhutan has tripled from $484 million to $1.606 billion. For the previous 12th five-year plan, India's contribution of 5,000 crore rupees constitutes 73% of Bhutan's total external grant component.
आज एक भारतीय के नाते मेरे जीवन का बहुत बड़ा दिन है। आपने मुझे भूटान के सर्वोच्च राष्ट्रीय अवार्ड से सम्मानित किया है। हर अवार्ड अपने आप में विशेष होता ही है, लेकिन जब किसी अन्य देश से अवार्ड मिलता है तो ये भरोसा मजबूत होता है कि हम दोनों देश सही दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। हमारा ये विश्वास भी बढ़ता है कि हमारे प्रयासों से दोनों देशों के लोगों का कल्याण हुआ है। हमें और अधिक परिश्रम करने का उत्साह मिलता है, ऊर्जा मिलती है, लेकिन यह सम्मान मेरी व्यक्तिगत उपलब्धि नहीं है। ये भारत और 140 करोड़ भारतीयों का सम्मान है। भूटान की इस महान भूमि पर मैं सभी भारतवासियों की ओर से यह सम्मान नम्रता से स्वीकार करता हूं और इस सम्मान के लिए आपका और भूटान की जनता का हृदय से कोटि कोटि धन्यवाद करता हूं। योर मैजेस्टी, 140 करोड़ भारतवासी जानते हैं कि भूटान के लोग उनके अपने परिवार के सदस्य हैं। भूटान के लोग भी यह जानते हैं, मानते हैं कि भारत उनका परिवार है। हमारे संबंध अटूट है, हमारी मित्रता अटूट है, हमारा आपसी सहयोग अटूट है और सबसे बड़ी बात है, हमारा विश्वास भी अटूट है।
All right. To understand the significance of this visit and India-Bhutan ties, especially through the prism of China. Let's go across to our panel of experts. Joining me on Global Lens tonight is Aditya Gaudara Shivamurthy, Associate Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj at the Center for South Asian Studies at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and a bit later on the show we are hoping to be joined by Professor Sanjeev Srivastav, Foreign Affairs Analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the show. Aditya Shivamurthy, if I could begin with you. Like I said at the start of the show, it is unusual for an Indian Prime Minister to travel abroad once the model code of conduct is in force and the election dates have been announced. But, you know, MA officials say that the reason Prime Minister Modi decided to go ahead with this visit, which comes a week after the visit of the Bhutanese Prime Minister to India, is to signal the kind of importance that New Delhi attaches to this relationship. Now, of course, there is the big elephant in the room, the China factor. Do you believe that is the single biggest factor that today is actually driving the India-Bhutan relationship, or are we being somewhat myopic? How do you look at it?
Well, firstly, thank you for having me. Well, I would like to start, by saying that having a single dimension to India-Bhutan relations is actually impossible to completely understand what India-Bhutan relationship is all about. Yeah, it is quite unusual for India for such high-level engagements to happen back to back. But it is also important to understand the importance that New Delhi has for Thimphu and vice versa. Now, for the starters to begin with, yes, China is obviously a factor that is behind this, but there are also other two factors which we need to understand. One is the domestic situation in Bhutan, which is basically its economy, and then the other factor is its migration crisis. Today, Bhutan is facing a big crisis of migration of its young people leaving the country, and at the same point in time, its economy has not been doing great in the last 5-6 years, especially after COVID onset. And added to that factor, now that they are facing an aggressive and assertive China, then that has been keen on getting into Bhutan. It's keen on intruding Bhutanese territories. It's keen on building its settlements in Bhutan, which is a big time challenge for a small landlocked country that is neighboring China. So this is what is happening right now. As Bhutan faces this challenge, India is there to assure Bhutan that we are here to assist you no matter what the difficulty is. We are here to assist you through your difficult phase of relations, be it with China or be it within your domestic issues. And that's why India has gone up to Bhutan. Prime Minister Modi has gone to Bhutan, and this relationship has always been built on personal gestures, benign gestures like this. And it is quite unusual, as you mark, for a Prime Minister to visit a foreign country at the time of elections, and that exemplifies how significant Bhutan is for India and how India is willing to stand with Bhutan for all its challenges that it's facing today. And it is indeed a significant development, and I sense that there is also a Chinese factor behind it, but added to that, we also have two other factors, which is also the bad economy, and then we also have a migration crisis, and India is there signing memorandums of understanding and having a heart-to-heart conversation about how to go ahead from here, and then furthering development assistance and cooperation with Bhutan.
There is no doubt that this is a multi-dimensional relationship, and that is the message that the Prime Minister has also sought to send out through this visit. The MEA has said this in statement after statement that they have issued, not to mention the fact that today Bhutan has also conferred the highest civilian honor on the Indian Prime Minister. But let me take the points that you've raised, Aditya, to Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj. Professor Bharadwaj, Aditya says that the message that India is trying to send out to its Himalayan neighbor is that, one, we have always stood by you through the decades. Our diplomatic ties go back all the way to 1968. And we are trying to tell Thimphu that as you face certain challenges, we will stand by your side, whether it is the state of the Bhutanese economy in a post-COVID world, whether it is the migration crisis or the growing Chinese aggression that, frankly, everyone in the region is at the receiving end of. But there are those who believe that the single biggest factor that is perhaps driving the India-Bhutan relationship right now is the China factor, the growing Chinese hegemony, the fact that New Delhi is keeping a very close eye on the Bhutan-China boundary talks that have been going on, because this is a matter of huge concern for New Delhi. It does not want another dimension added to the security threat that it already faces, from Beijing. How do you look at the significance of the India-Bhutan relationship today? And do you believe that this seems to have emerged as the defining factor in recent times?
Thank you very much. I think China is not the single factor or determining factor of India-Bhutan relations. I just look this India-Bhutan, in fact, that since we are part of common ecological system, and our dependencies are very complex, and India has very clear-cut policy objectives with Bhutan and with other neighbors. One is, of course, security, as you have correctly pointed out, that the security, while we are looking internal security aspects as well as the external security aspects. Internal security aspects, keeping northeastern states having bases of insurgents groups having bases in Bhutan and all that. So we are looking forward to have a positive cooperation from Bhutan, that it should not be a safe haven for the insurgent groups. External security factor, of course, it arises from China. Chinese, they are basically trying to have their access and influence in India's neighborhood, including the two Himalayan states. One is Nepal and one is Bhutan. So and they are trying to develop infrastructures on the border, particularly tri-junctions near Doklam and all that. And they are also questioning the border between Bhutan and China. So these are the critical issues for India also, because while the Chinese, they are becoming revisionist, they are becoming more aggressive, and they are challenging the current the status quo border. That is a big concern for India. India is definitely keeping eyes very consciously dealing with Bhutan on this issue. The second very important aspects that is again regarding Bhutan is economic developments, and that is also quite they are having problems definitely, because it's a landlocked country, it's a buffer zone, and a lot of trade and investment takes place through India. So definitely Bhutan is looking forward to have India cooperations or economic developments, and India in fact extend its support for the five years plan, that 5,000 crores that has been given to a 5-year plan. Now 13 5-year plan is in making. So they are looking for the infrastructure development or all that. But of course, for India's economic development, Bhutan is again very important. And you will see under India's Neighbourhood First Policy, Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2015 had took first visit to Bhutan, 2014-2015, because Bhutan has huge potential of hydroelectricity, and India is looking, because the neighboring states of Bhutan, like if you can say West Bengal, Bihar and UP, they are energy deficit region, and we are looking forward to have hydroelectricity supply to this region for the development of India. So Bhutan, we want to cultivate, we are cultivating, we are having different projects, Chuka projects and all that, importing energy or hydroelectricity from Bhutan, and we are also trying to involve the other regional actors like Bangladesh. We are asking like Bangladesh also invest in Bhutan's hydroelectricity sector, and that is what the second important things that we are looking Bhutan for the developmental purpose. Third is very important, again indicated about the political stability, and there are 30% population of Bhutan is Lhots Sampas. They are in the southern part of Bhutan. They are basically Nepali origin people, and they are having problems, creating problems within Bhutan. But you keep in your mind while we are dealing and we are looking at political stability, the Bhutan is maintaining two very important aspects. One is, of course, they are trying to democratize their society, and it is a top-down approach. The monarch themselves is democratizing its polity. The second very important aspect, there are two other communities, Serchop, and they are one is Tibetan community and one is Mongolian community. But Indo-Tibetan community is also trying to distance itself from China, the Tibetan part of China, and they are also not entertaining much the theocratic factors in this policy maker. So they are trying to distance from China historically, and they want to emphasize on their own culture, that is Drupka culture. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has also received the highest high order Drupka Galpo award, that is also related to culture. National, the highest award had been given. So India has very unique relations with Bhutan that China doesn't have. So China, they are trying to increase its influence through different ways. Either they are coercive measures, or they are also giving an incentive of investment and opportunity and all that. But the relations, India and Bhutan has historical relations, very unique relations that would go ahead. But one more important aspect, that is that India is just not looking, because after 1960s, when Bhutan has opened for the outer world, in 1960s, the modernization process had started. Now India is trying to integrate Bhutan with other states, as I correctly pointed out, that we are having a project of BBIN, Bangladesh, Bhutan, Nepal, India motor vehicle agreements. Though Bhutan has a reservation on that, but India tried to integrate with these Eastern South Asian sub-region. Number two, that India is having a tri-nations connectivity project to India, Myanmar, and Thailand. And they are also trying to develop one city, Galupu, and they are looking supports from India. That would be a hub for the development, because it is bordering with Assam, and this would help Bhutan to connect with other Southeast Asian countries, including Myanmar, Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, all that,
Okay.
because culturally they are very close. So it is basically India is trying to connect Bhutan. Last point I would like to say, that India is also trying to connect Bhutan to different ports in Bangladesh, like Mongla port. There are Paira port, and of course, because that earlier there were only Kolkata port has been used. Now, since through Bangla Manda, you can see that Bhutanese goods can go to Bangladesh, and that
Right.
they can go to Bay of Bengal to Mongla and Paira port. So these
Okay.
kinds of initiatives are helping Bhutan to come out for its economic development, for the
Yes.
political stability, and of course, we are very consciously looking forward for the security issues.
Absolutely. Thank you, Professor Bharadwaj, for that comprehensive analysis. I'll come back to you, but let's now go across to Professor Sanjeev Srivastav. Professor Srivastav, there is no denying the fact that India and Bhutan have historical ties. It's a unique relationship, as has often been said by the Ministry of External Affairs. It's a very important relationship, not just as part of India's Neighbourhood First Policy, but for various other reasons. And while we focus on the cultural ties and the people-to-people contact and how India has over the years, helped the Bhutanese economy, for instance, in multiple ways, how big a challenge is it today for India to try and in some ways limit the growing Chinese influence in our neighborhood? And I'm specifically talking about Bhutan now, because that is a matter of concern, which is why we're keeping a very close eye on the boundary talks that are taking place between Bhutan and China. Now, last year there was a cooperation agreement that was signed between the two countries, and any deal that is signed between Thimphu and Beijing would have security implications for India. Do you believe that New Delhi primarily looks at this bilateral relationship through the lens of China today for these reasons?
Well, yeah, as you very rightly mentioned, that this relationship between India and Bhutan is obviously based on our shared values, the cultural linkages, the spiritual linkages which we have with them. Also, this is a very unique, special, and enduring partnership which we have built with Bhutan from day one, from 1949 onwards. And when they began their, first the 5-year plan in early 60s, from that time onwards, we have been helping Bhutan in their various developmental projects. And India is the Bhutan's most significant, most important developmental partner as well. And obviously, when it comes to the matter of security, we gave a very, a clear, evidence and kind of, posture we took during the Doklam crisis in 2017, when their territory came under threat from Chinese aggressive and expansionist designs. And we, gave a very befitting reply to China while dealing with this crisis when they were constructing road in the Doklam plateau area. Until till the time they did not stop their road construction activities, we maintained our position, and it was an eyeball to eyeball confrontation. But India did it obviously to protect the Bhutanese territory as well. Doklam obviously is a Bhutanese territory, but any kind of border talks which Bhutan is having at this point of time for demarcation and delimitation of the border areas, I think India is having a very close watch, as you said very rightly. But let me say here that the kind of relationship, as I said, it's a unique relationship. It's an enduring partnership, a special relationship. I am sure that the Bhutanese authorities, the Bhutanese government will, go ahead with their talks with China in such a way that it does not, cause any kind of concerns for India's security interest. Also, it is not only about their security interest, but it is also about their territorial integrity.
Absolutely.
Bhutan, there should not be any such arrangement where there is a swap deal of a Doklam.
And I want to talk about that. I want to talk about that possible swap deal in the next segment, because that is one of the biggest concerns that India has vis-a-vis Bhutan and China. After all, we have witnessed China's growing aggression and expansionism in the region.